A Harrier Problem. Rise of the Furball by Blue Bastard. Chapter 25. Define Judgment. Apple Blue, groaned Applejack. Yes, please, replied Philly. We've established that the whole you not telling us about being a werewolf thing is behind us, right? Yeah. Good. Now stop sniffing my behind! Fussy, the young apple backed away from her sister's plot. Sorry. Applejack just shook her head. Please don't tell me you sniffed the behinds of other ponies in public. Wouldn't her teacher, what's her name, have mentioned something like that? Suggested Lightning Dust, before reaching into a bag of Happy Puppy dog biscuits and popping a few to her mouth. Damn, these things are really good. You're referring to Cheerilee, I'm guessing, and I won't eat too many of those, Dusty, replied Applejack, as he confiscated the bag. This'll be the only bag we'll get until we get to Ponyville. I doubt it'll last that long, pointed out Apple Bloom. I went through a bag of once a week initially. I was going through twice as much by nightmare night. Alright, we gotta go racing them now, rhetorically asked Applejack, taking a biscuit into her muzzle. Well, no, it's not gonna like it. Better than actually eating real meat, you have to admit that, Dr. Pegasus. True. I just worry what's gonna happen to Race, mumbled Apple Bloom. None of this will happen had I not gotten separated from the group. What are you so worried about, Sugar Crew? Applejack replied, trying over to where Apple Bloom had sat down in the corner of the bedroom. It had been decided at the luncheon yesterday that for the time being, it would be better for the werewolves to all share a room to sleep in, since even while Raspberry didn't know how those werewolves got to pack animals, it was generally agreed that erring on the side of caution in that regard wouldn't hurt anything. As long as no pony tried to make it their side of the room, unless the sleeping rage monster that was the Castle Carolot cleaning staff would be unleashed. None of what's happened is your fault. Well, said Apple Bloom, while we're starting up. I told you I was a werewolf. I never would have. Apple Bloom, I know what you're going to say, cut off Lightning Dust. But in truth, you told Applejack and the others about your lycanthropy, then the events on Nightmare Night would have been different, possibly with worse results. Nothing would have changed that, but made the situation better. Fairfisted would still be after you. Raspberry would still be hiding in her own hell instead of ending a cycle of pain and suffering she kept subjecting herself to. And who knows what else? What's done is done. So all things considered, in fact, nothing close to worst case scenario can be. We should be thankful there may be light at the end of the tunnel. Appleton sighed. Yeah, you're right, Lightning. I still don't feel right till this whole matter is over. So let's check all the other princesses in for discussing hours ago. There's still no sign of them coming in so she can lay judgment. I'm worried too, Bloomy, soothed AJ as he laid a foreleg over the back of Applebloom's neck. I never did get the chance to really apologize for my behavior towards her when she said it might have been her fault I'm a werewolf again. Wasn't her fault, really. No pulling knew. And she was right, and I just been living an illusion of having been turned back to normal. Just then there was a brief sense of knocks on the door, followed by Fluttershy entering. It's time, girls. The princesses are going to end this once and for all. For the third time in as many days, Raspberry was being judged by the same four royals. This third and hopefully final time being more of an address to the country about her than anything, as news had spread of her stunts at the courtroom. On the one hand, it felt like the trial all over again, except with the highest possible power of judgment about to hammer down the path of fate she was to follow. No defense team provided by Twilight this time. And yet, it was still better, as the reassuring grip of Heliodor's talons on her horn, her fake Raker horn, as she decided to don her preferred colors in form for the day in lieu of the forms she'd been altered to over the years for device of rarity, made a world of difference. She could feel the eyes of a nation among them, the ponies from Ponyville, who befriended even as they were hurt in her presence. She wondered if they were the only sets of eyes not sitting on a throne before her that wished for her well-being. All the others, well, she couldn't give less of a damn. They had a problem with her. They need to get through Heliodor, a firestorm of emerald blazes first. Everybody, please settle down, Luna calmly requested. The crowd of ponies instantly falling silent. Her simple command. As you all know, it's been an interesting series of events here at Canterlot, thanks to the special nature of Miss Raspberry Battle and her ever-loyal pet, the Phoenix Heliodor. Under the intensive lover, Healy feigned humility in the slight praise given to him by the Princess of the Night. Obviously, due to her claims that she is descended from the false King Samla, said Cadence, taking her turn to speak. She is the last of what history has called the Crystal Imperial bloodline, a discredited branch of the old Equestrian royal family, long thought extinct due to the former belief that Sombra produced no heirs to his name. He instantly turned and nodded to the pony, who had once Volstagg, now a fellow princess. Polly gave a nod of her own acknowledgement before she continued to speak. But simply being of royal blood, no matter how far removed it has come from the source, does not excuse the pony's actions. The laws that are a part of Equestria since its founding thousands of years ago are the true highest power. Even we alicorns are not above them. But it's not birthrights or privilege that those laws are judged by. No, this country, our Equestria, was founded on the beliefs of harmony, of honesty, laughter, kindness, generosity, loyalty, and magic, which together form the friendships that have bound us all together. The past days of events that will define their memory serve as a reminder of that. For initially, the point who sits before us, Raspberry Barrel, was brought here to be judged on the severity of her crimes. As we learned, however, we cannot judge a pony like her on those grounds alone, when it was shown to us that her crimes were in fact a reflection of who she is on the inside. Once Twilight was finished, Celestia left a moment of silence for the words to register in all the audience's minds, before clearing her throat and made to finish his business once and for all. Raspberry Barrel, you were brought to Canterlot of your own accord, I will note, and received judgment and trial on the crimes of having committed the greatest number of offenses against Equestria itself in its recorded history. These acts all sharing one common factor, dark magic. According to you, as well as been verified by several other trustworthy sources, the magic that you possess is no ordinary dark magic, but a much more powerful nature that was inherited by your ancestor, King Sombra. Your special talent is having a mastery of the dark arts on his level, as well, which surpasses all others who wish to use the corrupted side of magic for their own ends. It is on those grounds that it does not matter whether you are innocent or guilty of conspiring to defy the authority of Kostrani crowns. You're very clear a present danger to every pony and every settlement in the country with the powers you hold. But, Your Majesty, cried the shocked Raspberry, but single rate so for Twilight still is there. Please, let Her Majesty finish, appealed the youngest princess, the slight sense of a smile appearing at the sides of her muzzle. Thank you, Princess Twilight, continued Celestia, resuming her place in her speech. Surely, Raspberry Barrel, you must understand that it's not just your robber and skill that makes you a threat alone, but the reputation that comes with those powers. 1,000 years ago, Sombra used those same powers to turn the Crystal Empire into a nightmare's wasteland, enslaving innocent ponies and other unmentionable horrors purely with the intentions of his new domain being a mere stepping stone to conquering all of Equestria. He also prevailed again not too long ago, had it not been for a special group of ponies and a certain assistant. As he mentioned Spike in passing, he glanced over at the stained glass mural that commemorated the victory of Spike the Dragon over Sombra. Spike was the one who saved the Crystal Heart? Thought Raspberry, eyes shrinking as the gravity of her actions a few days ago finished sinking in. I don't remember ever hearing about him being there. Now that every pony more or less thinks I'm Sombra incarnate, the biggest reason I was here was that diamond nearly killed him. Yes, the same assistant who is a beloved member of the royal family, said the Sun Princess, not losing a beat but noticing Raz's reaction. The one who happened to befall a terrible injury by the same magic he helped defeat. Ponies will interpret it as you having the same ambitions as Sombra himself, which will generate panic and disorder should you be let free and unpunished. Much less my hope being fierce purely because the dark magic practice is forbidden in Equestria, outside of extraordinary circumstances. Furthermore, the actions at your trial must be interpreted as an attack on the highest degree of treason, which in itself would be enough to sentence your immediate execution. Yes, Your Highness, acknowledged Raspberry, her head drooping in acceptance of fate hadn't escaped at all. But, added Celestia, getting a sharp reaction from all those in front of her, Raz Heliodor chief among them. It is extraordinary circumstances that have guided you through life, my little pony, and even more extraordinary that you should bear the powers and features of King Sombra, yet within your heart and mind are untouched. You have struggled for years, not only because of your lineage, of the sins committed centuries before your time, but because you chose not to use those dark powers to gain power and follow the path of evil like Sombra. You desire not what your blood demands is yours as part of royalty, and was given as birthright to all ponies. He also gained the trust of some of the most important ponies in the country, chief among them Princess Twilight, who you hurt through no fault of your own when Spike ate your handiwork. You were there to protect Apple Bloom, and sister to Applejack, from an unforeseen evil that the elements themselves couldn't prevent. And above all else, when you had the entire ruling body of Equestria at your mercy, you cared more about vengeance for the companion who had been your only family for so long, rather than surpassing King Sombra and accomplishing the one thing he never could. But that's unfair, admittedly, because that suggests that is how you compare yourself to the pony, who defied so much of you before he was even defeated the first time. And everything that you do, the desires and goals that drive your actions to the citizens, are so that comparing him to you was so that you are nothing like him. As I said before, your crimes against Equestria itself and the royal family are on the level of the highest treason imaginable. So, in that regard, the punishment must be equal to repercussions. However, Celestia suddenly smiled. A small smile. It was just the scariest thing Raspberry Barrel and Heliodor had ever seen. Was the princess actually happy about leveling something as bad as a death sentence? Luna was of the same opinion. Have you gone mad, sister? She whispered directly to her counterpart. Raspberry Barrel has done nothing wrong with her visited birth to come into play. My time as Nightmare Moon, as my offenses to Equestria, be far worse with a single attack on a settlement, whereas the worst she has done is kill her father in self-defense. There is a difference, sister, responded Celestia. Just watch. If not death, thought Raspberry, quick eager, seated in front of the same ponies who condemned Sombra to a fate far worse than death, and later condemned to actual death. Then what will they do to me? Cast me into a shadowy form locked in ice? Raspberry Barrel, while normally a pony who has intentionally committed such acts as you, would be put to death. Your unique situation suggests a much more preferable fate would be to serve the Equestrian crown for the rest of your life. So that's what your punishment will be. In hard labor? Blurted out the unicorn. Scarcely would be forced into a situation where she couldn't probably care for Heliodor. Celestia laughed, was for a moment put every pony on edge for the same reason Raspberry had earlier. But it quickly became clear that there was more going on than initially thought. Of course not. You may have been born on a farm, but you're not an earth pony. You are, however, a unicorn with mastery over the most dangerous kind of magic known to exist. Dark magic has always posed a threat to Equestria by those who would wish to see it fall or be under their domain. All ponies who explore the dark arts fall under its corruptive influence, so is it possible to truly understand it that such better defenses against it can be created? Sombra's short-lived return a while back was a rude awakening to the fact that defenses against dark magic are no better now than they were 1,000 years back. Combined with the various ways his influence has continued to affect Equestria ever since his first defeat, the need for improving those defenses had never been greater. An impossible task, as even we, alicorns, require great amounts of our power concentration to use it, while unicorns who try to examine it either die in trying in the attempt of turning against the crown, which defeats the point. But you, Raspberry, you're the exception. One pony who has ever had the raw power of dark magic straight from Sombra himself, along with the skills to fully utilize that magic. Yet your heart and mind are as pure as can be. No pony who is truly as good as you ever deserves a life sentence to anything. But even I cannot overrule the doctrines that Equestria is founded on, so I can explain how vague that statement's service to the crown could be interpreted. Raspberry's eyes started to grow wide and misty. She was not going to die. It's going to be my sentence to help keep this country safe, that my magic could be used for good. Then I will happily accept my sentence. Just don't put me in a dozen cells, separate me from Heliodor. I don't want to go through that again. Oh no. We're just gonna femicide you. Kudos, get to work! With pleasure, mine. That wasn't even possible regardless of your opinion, Raspberry, answered Cadence. Your magic is of such a powerful nature there are few ponies who could continue any trouble you would cause. It would be seen as foolhardy to leave you in a stone cell with only guards keeping an eye on you, since even the most powerful of guards would be but toy soldiers against your might. Fortunately, continued Twilight. As it so happens, all the ponies who would be able to properly act as handlers live in the same place. It's a little small village. Maybe you heard of it? Raspberry's eyes grew larger and brighter. Your Majesties are letting me go back to Ponyville? Luna nodded for her fellow royals. Indeed. We discussed it at length and determined the best means of any supervision for you will be from ponies that you feel comfortable around, and every pony in the Equestria can rely on to keep you safe on the straight and narrow. But, above all else, we will need no better than your father by denying you the life you deserve. You found happiness in Ponyville, a place that you feel is where you belong after so many years of drifting aimlessly. Who are we to take that from you? I, started Raspberry, and he sprang back up onto all four hooves, but all attempts to speak had resulted in choking. Ears were furiously fluttered about either side of her head, trying her best to wipe out the first tears rolling down her cheeks, while not placing himself in line of sight between his mistress and the four alicorns. Eventually, he gave up with a tired sigh and retired to sit on Raspberry's back. Siammy noticed him as he finally showed down Violet Cats and there's a cat. Always a cat. Unfortunately, there are one or two, confirmed Celestia. There were some ways you could say that without killing the light of hope of Raspberry's eyes. We'll be alright in the end. Due to the dangers posed by your dark crystal gems, should they be eaten by a dragon-like spike, unlikely that may be, or they react to some other magic breaking them open and allowing them to grow uncontrollably, you are forbidden from selling or distributing anything made from black crystal in any form, unless further safety precautions can be devised for that line of work. Additionally, you are forbidden to leave Ponyville without being accompanied by one of the ponies who will carry the title of Warden. In the event there's anything involving dark magic requiring the involvement of the crown, you'll be summoned for duty as an expert, as is laid out in your sentencing. Silence. Raspberry stood there, trembling. Especially Celestia mentioned something else. The Whopper, the deal breaker. Something would prove that this was all more bullshit that fate was throwing at her to make life even more miserable. But there was nothing. Celestia just sat there on her throne, just like the other three princesses, looking at Raspberry with a disturbable expression. She couldn't take it. That's it? Raspberry, is something wrong? Inquired Twilight, concern in her face. Of course there is! Screamed Raspberry. You can't expect me to believe that after everything that's happened here, the worst you're going to do is basically order me to use my dark magic in ways that'll help other ponies, and I can just go back to Ponyville, to the retreat, and just live life like I always wanted? Yeah, replied Celestia. Not wondering if any point, something had been said wrong that triggered Raspberry's temper. The eldest princess started prepping a defensive spell that should in this moment should be a relief all around, since it took a lot of loophole finding to manage her punishment on Raspberry to create to another episode akin to a trial. No! I can't! Blurted Raz, evidently more confused than actually angry. That's not how life works! Not for me. Everything good that comes my way, other than Heliodor, always falls true and always ends up. In her hysterics, Raspberry failed to notice Rarity get up from her place, stride confidently over to the self-destructing Unicorn, then bitch slap her clean across the face! Thank you, Rarity! If you did, I was. For heaven's sake, darling! Pull yourself together! The rest of the Ponyville crew had gotten up and now stood around Raspberry. It was still recovering from Rarity being most unladylike. There's a difference between being ladylike and being a coward. And somebody gotta knock some sense to Raz here. Raz was starting to sound like a Mikey character. Hello! Lasagna trick, Raz. Or a reality check character. Said Applebloom, walking up and putting her hoof on Raspberry's. I told you to trust him, that everything will work out. Indeed, it will be a shame that I won't be able to use your services to help decorate my products anymore, but we're still friends, and that's what counts most, no? Plus, you can always look at life like a cup and see it's half empty, Lightning does there, ejected. I know so many people that need that lesson beat into their skull. I mean, the fact that little problem of mine still hasn't been fixed kind of puts a damper on things. Other than that, being a Ponyville's made me happier than I've been in years. No small part of Rainbow and friends giving me a second chance after nearly killing them all. But you never even had a first chance. Now you do.
But starting a party will cheer you up,
suggested Pinky, to the surprise of absolutely no point.
You have to wait until he got back home, but a nice big party should help you fit right in.
I also think you should remember how much we need you, Reyes. Admitted Applejack. Your reason Apple Bloom is still with us is because you stopped you know who. And that bitch will come back. You're the only one who can really stop her. Rainbow laughed.
Yeah, that actually reminds me. You'll need to show us some of your sweet moves. Everyone was saying the beatdown you were giving on that girl sounded like an epic fight. But since you put her in that crystal prison for her own safety, she didn't know what you were actually doing. Fortunately for you, I do want to know. And don't worry about the other ponies in town. They'll warm up to you again, said Fluttershy. I mean, you probably just want to stick with the form you're in, since your real form was scared children and small animals. But you mean using your dark magic for mundane things that wouldn't hurt any pony. Like levitating fruit to a bag or something. That would prove you're just as much of a regular pony as the rest of us. Your aura is just unique.
Raspberry looked at each of the ponies gathered around her one by one. Every single one of them had a reason for hating their guts. But they didn't. Instead, they listened to her story, understood her plight, and in the end, had done what Apple Bloom had promised.
Thank you. All of you.
Cried Raspberry, throwing caution to the wind and taking Pinkie Pie to a rib-crushing hug. Behind him in the crowd of Gerald Public ponies who were bearing witness to all this, a low rumble began to be heard. Gradually, it became louder and louder, until the other side of the hall echoed with the sound of thunderous, hip-stomping applause for the mercy shown by the princesses. But to Raspberry, it was a sound of congratulations, a victory over her long and troubled life. Everything had turned out for the best. Well, almost. There were still 2 ponies whose judgment still had to be passed, back in their own castle back at Ponyville. Though they were mere specks of importance compared to Celestia's assistant, their opinion mattered far more to the Dark Unicorn. Later, after Luna had raced the moon, and long after Ponyville crew had allowed to return home, Celestia looked out her private balcony. She could see for many miles from this vantage point. As usual, her attention was focused on the same place she often gazed towards. Over 100 years ago, she had told the apples she could start a farm to live on instead of being a nomadic wagon train. She knew a town would spring up soon enough. Granted, she hadn't known about the Zap apples, those had come as a surprise, but the magical fruit had been plain, the town would still have sprung up as a center of community regardless. She had planned on that town being where 6 ponies would bear the restored elements would converge on that fateful night for the first time. Originally, Twilight hadn't been the one Celestia would thought would be the spark to restore Luna from her tortured state as Nightmare Moon. Compared to Sunset Shimmer, came an all too familiar voice. Twilight was the better choice. I do wish you would develop a habit of not intruding on the privacy of other ponies in their rooms, Discord, sighed Celestia. Although that would imply I was even in the castle to begin with, my dear. Chuckled Discord, probably levitated up from below the balcony and oriented such that he was upside down. Although, I will admit, I am genuinely worried for your health. After all that business with Raspberry Barrel, and her turning out to be the complete opposite of the resurrected nightmare you originally thought she was, you really should get some shut-eye.
Since when have you cared for my health? Inquired Celestia with a raised eyebrow. Even if you managed to spin the whole Luna and I were captured and imprisoned by your failed scheme from 1,000 years ago, event to be favorable to you in the end, it still doesn't change the fact you let it happen in the first place.
True, I did allow my plunder seeds to abduct you, but beyond the initial panic, were any of you in any real danger at that point?
Well, no. We were kept in pretty cramped conditions under all those signs, but we weren't explicitly hurt.
Exactly. Believe it or not, as much as I serve to be the counter evidence needed to do everything you desire for the country, I'm not stupid. There must always be a balance. I would hardly call what you did in this world twice before and after you were first imprisoned in stone easy remotely resembling balance. Yes, well, I admit, those things do make me sound hypocritical, but don't you dare say the ends justify the means here. Oh, of course not. That cliche is old and boring anyway. No, the reason I screwed up the balance of everything those 2 times was because I let myself go out of control. Yes, I know. It sounds strange coming from somebody whose entire point of existing is the opposite of control. But bear with me. The first time he took over Equestria, it was supposed to be a test. Yes. A test to see what you and Luna would do in the face of a countrywide crisis. Unfortunately, due to your mother leaving this world several years before, I lost the only gauge of how much chaos was too much. You see, as an agent of chaos, it's my job to cause it, as your mother's job was to bring order and peace. That's why we got along so well, you see, because we had respect for the importance of others' purpose. I was comparatively much more powerful with the ability to alter the world with nothing but a snap of my fingers. Fingers? asked Celestia. What are those? Oh, right. Those don't exist here. Just forget I said that. Anyway, with a mere snap, I could do whatever I want, whenever I want. With Faust, she had a much better understanding of things, of the why things behind things are existing are happening. She perceived how to best use our powers in tandem to keep this reality in check with itself, for the benefit of all living things. You really need Queen Faust to tell you when things got excessive? I think making ponies becoming shallow imitations of themselves is well beyond what we consider excessive. Yes, admitted Discord. What Celestia was realized was true. Honest admission of fault. This creature would try to spit anything such that it looked like he'd been right all along, was honestly saying he screwed up somewhere. We were such a team, Faust and I. Sort of a brains and brawn. She was the brains, telling me that what needed to be done and where, and I happily did it. But never did she treat me as anything less than an equal. Every single other thing alive at the time saw me as an evil being. She really was the only anchor I had to sanity. So when the time came to test Luna and I, you sort of lost it and went overboard out of grief? Not out of grief, but in need. You won't believe me, but it was part of Faust's final request as well as the prophecy I told you earlier. But now that Raspberry Barrel's back on her intended path, it's safe for you to know everything now. So read that scroll you've been dangling in front of me like a carrot? Sort of the reason I won't share it with you. Now is because Luna needs to be here. You are both the only things of Faust that remain in this world. You both deserve to know each other's mother's final words, along with what our favorite little ponies may be facing in the near future. Guys, I just had this thought. But if Raspberry is a part of the royal family, then this gives her full right to be a queen. And if she becomes a queen, this makes her Queen Beryl. Months we have been reading this story, and you just now thought of a good Queen Beryl reference? I'm sorry, Tracy, but it's been a busy few months. My jokes are coming as fast as they should. It's been a rough week for Raspberry Beryl. 1 week ago, she had willingly surrendered to the crown after choosing Apple Bloom for fair fitness over a clean escape. She spent several days as a prisoner on trial. Though, admittedly, only 2 of those nights had been absolute hell, thanks to well-justified separation anxiety. Now, she was illegally serviced to the crown for life, in the vaguest sense of indentured servitude imaginable. But her gamble befriending the most dangerous ponies in Equestria to her had paid off. You ready? asked Twilight. As I'll ever be, replied Raspberry. He laid her perch on her back, not where he would be, but would rather keep a low profile. He wouldn't be able to perch on her horn as usual. If the worst should happen, darling, Verity said, you can always stay at my place. But I think I can speak for all of us when I say I know everything is going to be all right. Thanks, I really mean it. You all pulled through for me back in Camelot, so if you all think this is going to work out, then I believe so too. With a quick smile and a deep breath, Raspberry departed a group of friends who had almost become a surrogate family to her, a sisterhood of sorts. But as she walked up to the familiar old steps and opened the door, a little bell attached to it, letting out a cheerful ring. She hoped she would count 2 other ponies among family that she had found in Ponyville. 1 second, I just need to put these keys back. Came the easily recognizable voice of Casimir from the desk, followed by a nice-side clink of a keyring hanging to the hook. There we go. Apologies, but welcome to Traveler's Retreat. As Casimir turned around, delivering a stock greeting, she stopped mid-sentence as realization just who had entered hit her. Raspberry? Yes, Miss Casimir. It's me. I'm home, but
Only if you want me. But, why wouldn't you be wanted? I'm sure you already know, but I was convicted of high treason after what I did at the trial about me using dark magic near school. She was cut off guard as the elderly mayor made a surprisingly athletic tackle and took the unicorn to a big hug. Have you been worried about what Ascot and I would think about you after hearing all of that? Asked the innkeeper, eyes getting misty. Why wouldn't I? You two did so much for me, opening your home, letting me live here, only for me to turn out to be a pony on the run and all the lies I fed you. Oh, you poor thing. Didn't Verity tell you? She sent letters almost daily to us about what was going on. You won't believe how worried we were that you would be taken from us, all on accounts of dusty old laws and fate being cruel to you. We feared the worst when we didn't get a letter today. But now you're here again, and oh, plus Celestia, you're home. You're not angry at me? For the lies, or the dark magic, or the...
Why would be that angry? Came a new voice, this time from Ascot, who emerged from the door leading into the dining room after hearing the conversation. From the letters, we know what you have told us is mostly true. Anyway, what you hid from us was not for reasons of ill intent, but of shame for who you were, when you wanted to protect us from the things of your past. No pony can fault you for that. No pony with a brain can figure out the thing with Spike was an accident, and not some premeditated assassination or whatever. Hell, if it wasn't for your magic, not only would that young apple not be around today, neither would I.
Wait, what? Twilight said, who had suddenly appeared behind Raspberry, startling the group. My apologies for intruding, but we were getting so worried when Raspberry didn't come out to let us know if everything is good or not between you two and her. I just wanted to make sure. But, Raz, what did you mention having saved Mr. Ascot back at Carolot? It was nothing, really, said Raz meekly, blushing all the while. I just did what any good-hearted pony would have done.
Modest as usual. Good to see you haven't changed a bit, Raspberry. Laughed Ascot, who moved alongside the rare unicorn to drape his good wing over her in embrace. But, really, what she did that night, she and that rascal of a bird keeps company, no pony else could have done it.
No, really, Ascot, I didn't do that much, honest. Raspberry blushed harder, while Heliodor just rolled his eyes, knowing what was to come. Well, sounds like a story worth hearing, Mr. Ascot. Was he mine? Asked Twilight eagerly.
Sure, but bring in the rest of the girls, too. We'll whip up something for you all to eat. It must have been a long train ride. But Raspberry, what she did for us that night, what she's done since, damn it all if we don't think of her as a daughter.
And the clamor that was to follow and preparing for the dining room for a story. Everybody took note of the great big silly smile on Raspberry's face. The smile that indicated the biggest hole in her life. The void left for the only parents he had ever had from loving her. Finally been long last filled. Deep down, Raspberry knew her place in the world was a master of dark magic. Like with the forces of Harmony would be difficult. But even an army of 1,000 fair fistas couldn't stop her now. Not when Raspberry finally found her place in the world. A place where she was wanted. A magic where she could be used for more good than making small shiny gems just to make a living. Where there were ponies who knew what she was and loved. And regardless, where she would finally have something to hold her down, so she would be willing to defend it against anything fate threw at her now. A place called home. Wow. Well, this was pretty engaging. I really enjoyed the trial, and everything just moved at a good pace. I mean, granted, the Heliodor, martial art for user. I mean, granted, I think the story could have done, martial art for user. And what was with that werewolf thing? Hey! Martial art for user! Yes, Trix. There's still, according to Happy, at least 9 more chapters to go. What? But that ending! It was so perfect! And considering that Raspberry had been dominating at least at least 7 chapters by now. I thought this was the end. I mean, yeah, there's a few mysteries left, but the story felt like it was the ending. See you guys next week.